Through recording now. Hi, John Spark here from Travel Purpose, and on the other side here you can see Jake. Jake is the state manager for Peregrine and Intrepid. Welcome, Jake. How are you, mate?
I'm great, thanks, mate. Hi, John. It's be here. Thanks for having the time to see me today.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Just so anyone who's watching, or you're watching this, obviously, this is just a little taste of a special event that we're holding next Tuesday night, where Jake will be in our office in Albany. Now, I appreciate that not everybody watching this is just necessarily in Albany, so we're going to do an online version, much just like what we are now. But what we're going to do, Jake, we're going to bust the 5 myths of adventure travel, aren't we?
Yes, we are. I think. Oh, you go, mate.
What you can look forward to, because as you can see now, Jake and I haven't rehearsed this. We're getting caught up with our own talking, but hey, that's part of the fun. The first myth, Jake, is what?
So the first myth about adventure travel is that you have to be an adrenaline junkie to enjoy adventure travel.
Okay, so we'll cover that, and let's let everybody know what to expect. The second myth?
Second myth is you need to be fit to enjoy adventure travel.
Yeah, that's and here's the one that I love the most. I think you have to be young. Is that the third one?
That is one that's out there for sure, yes.
Yeah, and the average age, I think when you listen into this, you're going to be quite surprised. The fourth one?
So the fourth one is to enjoy adventure travel, you need to rough it in terms of your accommodation and transport styles.
And people like me, we're not going to rough it. And the fifth one?
And the fifth one is that you won't get an authentic experience if you choose a tour company to do it rather than doing it yourself. Yeah,
I can't wait for you to cover that. So what we'll do now is we'll just cover off a little bit about, as an intro, to give people an idea, so you can get a feel whether this is worth you exploring anymore. At the end of the presentation, or if you want to now, you can go down to the link down the bottom here and register for either the in-house presentation, where Jake will be there personally, or for a webinar. So without any further ado, Joe, take away number one.
Number one, alrighty. So you have to be an adrenaline junkie to enjoy adventure travel. Now, I think once upon a time, when somebody said adventure holiday, the first thing that comes to your mind is bungee jumping or trekking or that kind of high activity, high octane stuff. These days, with Intrepid and Peregrine, two very distinct brands, together we're the world's largest provider of adventure travel experiences. And we like to think of adventure as not necessarily, getting out there and climbing a mountain. We like to think of adventure as trying something new or doing something different, or just getting off the beaten track. So I think, boarding a mega yacht in Santorini to check out the Greek islands is an adventure just as much as Everest Base Camp is. A nuclear powered icebreaker to the North Pole is an adventure, but also so is a food tour through Italy, and it's all things that we offer with Peregrine and Intrepid.
Yeah, which obviously they have their own adrenaline hit, but they're not the same as somebody hanging on the side of a mountain or about to jump off a 200-foot bridge with a bungee cord around their ankle. Excellent. And I guess I know there's a lot more to that. So number two is?
Number two is that you need to be fit to enjoy adventure travel. And, Camino de Santiago or summiting Kilimanjaro, things like that do require a bit of training beforehand. But a lot of our trips, I'd say probably about 70% of them, if you can handle a flight of stairs, then our trips are going to be very easy. Everything from the cruising itineraries, which are very slow paced, up until a mountaineering one. So there's not really a specific level of fitness that you need to have in order to have an adventure.
Cool. And now this is the one that I mentioned at the start. Young. I want to talk about something here before you say anything. And we had a luncheon here yesterday, and it was very interesting. The one thing that if you are a traveller watching this right now, you know what I'm about to say, is if you're 50 years old, you feel 35 when you're travelling. If you're 60, you feel 45. Our passport tells us one thing, but our age tells us another. And I think that's, when you look at what you're about to say here, we're going to learn that the average age on these trips is what?
Well, interestingly, with Intrepid, average age is 55 to 65, and
you seem to be really.
Yeah, that's the one. I think Intrepid, it has, I think our minimum age is about 5 years old with the family products. And I know recently we just sent a 90-year-old to base camp. So there's really kind of no limit to what we have there. With Peregrine being a bit more of a premium product, bit of a more mature clientele, but again, 55, young, loving to walk around. It's not a young person's game in the adventure market.
Yeah, well, and 55 and up, and premium products in adventure is interesting in its own right, because that leads to the fourth myth, which is you don't have to rough it. Being over 55 myself, but liking the adventure, Peregrine, Intrepid type holidays, I like my comfort. So expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so with the Intrepid brand, we offer 3 levels of comfort, from your cheap and cheerful right through to your more plush. But the Peregrine brand itself, when we started back in the 70s, we were very much a hiking company. But as our clientele have grown up, so is the Peregrine brand. So these days, your Peregrine trip, it's kind of quite a boutique, very comfortable place where we're going to these weird and wonderful places, but we're doing it in a very soft, comfortable way these days.
Cool. And then finally, we get to the 5th myth we're going to bust, and that is?
The 5th myth, and this is the one I hear a lot, is that people think if they're going with a tour company, they're not going to get that authentic experience that they really like as an independent traveler.
And sorry.
I think probably proof here as to the authentic experience. About 7 years ago, I considered myself a very independent traveler. The idea of a tour terrified me. I thought that's something I'd never do. But I entered a drumming competition after a few beers one night and won it. And the prize was an Intrepid trip to Egypt. And I thought, well, it's on the bucket list and it's free. I'm gonna have a look. And with Intrepid, we use exclusively local leaders. And from the moment I met my Egyptian guide in Egypt, and he just kind of walked me through his country and just kind of showed me a side that I wouldn't have experienced as a visitor to Egypt. I felt more like a friend walking through, and just getting the insider info on where to eat and what to do, and the tips that you might not get from the guidebooks, and visiting places that aren't even in the guidebooks. It was such a better experience than what I'd been able to do before, that I came back home and quit my job to work for Intrepid, and here I am 6 years later.
Wow, it's an interesting little story, because just yesterday we had a group, a tour company in here, Backroads Tours, you're very familiar with, and yes. Michelle joined them a few years ago, and she was an airline person exactly the same as you. No way a tour would be her game, but in all fairness, and she's quite open about it, she'd been made redundant and she wanted to stay in the industry. There were no airline opportunities. She read the brochure on Backroads and thought, you know what, I think I could get used to this. Now she's a convert in every sense of the word. I mean, their families and friends all travel that way, because it's not like the old coach tour that everybody hears of, the 45, 50 passengers, cases out the door at 6:30 in the morning, herded from one thing to another. These are what you've touched on before. You actually get up close to the culture and experience it. So I can't wait to have you down here on Tuesday night and online in both presentations, really, to explore all this in a lot more depth. You've tended a lot of travel expos. I couldn't even begin to say how many thousands of people must have gone past you over the years. What is probably the number one question that you get asked, if you were to able to on the spot, I'll put you on the spot, what would be the number one question that you get asked?
The number one question I get asked, I would say it would have to be, and you touched on it earlier actually, am I going to be on a bus with 40, 50 other people?
Right.
think a lot of people that have done tours previously have often experienced that larger group. We're a maximum of 12, so it's a very kind of different experience, and you can kind of see the relief on people's faces when you say, 12 is as big as it'll get. That would be probably someone's number one concern. Lately, it's also, is Iceland really as expensive as they say it is? And the answer is yes.
It's actually, you probably are well aware of this, we tell people all the time, it's one of the 5 destinations in the world that is suffering from over-tourism. It is crazily stupid there, extremely expensive, and if you're not with tour, we put everybody in some tour group because of your buying power and local knowledge just makes such a difference, and everybody comes back and say, thank goodness we did it that way. We see so many people frustrated trying to make their own way around, and because there's so many tourists in those situations, what you've got to understand is so much money there, the people don't care whether you're happy or unhappy, because right behind you is a dirty great big line, hundreds of metres long in a lot of cases. So, interesting. Now, I don't want you to answer now, but I want you to tell me what it is. What is the one question that you feel people should ask that they don't ask before they consider whether they should do an Intrepid or a Peregrine?
Whether they should do an Intrepid or a Peregrine. I guess if you're tossing up between the two brands, the best question I would ask is, can I see the Peregrine feature stays in the country? Because they are gorgeous, and I think people are often very happy they paid that little bit extra for the Peregrine trip when they check into those feature properties.
I look forward to expanding on that at the end of on our presentation on Tuesday. So there you go. Thanks, Jake. Really appreciate that. Hopefully you've now got a bit of a feel for whether you want to consider or explore a Peregrine or a Intrepid holiday. I certainly hope you do, because obviously they're a fantastic product. We've supported you for a long, long time, and we love hearing clients' experiences when they come back. And you may know, I don't know, what's your repeat level? You've got a very high repeat number from us.
Ooh, our repeat level, it's up in the 90s. We tend to have, once you're with us, that you tend to stick with us.
Yeah, I think it's 92% or something like that from the numbers that I've been told. So that tells you that it works, and that's ultimately what we're trying to help you do, find something that works for you. So to register for our webinar for Tuesday night, our presentation in-house, then click the link down below, and obviously we'd love to see you. You'll register, and then of course if you want to attend the webinar, which we honestly haven't set the date for yet, it'll probably be in about 2 weeks' time. We'll be doing the same presentation online, which means you can sit at home in the luxury of your house and watch it. And don't worry, if for some reason you won't be able to make the webinar time when we do it live, and the advantage of doing it live is you'll be able to ask questions, and at the end of the presentation we will do our best to answer them all. But there will be a recording of it made available, and you'll be notified of it, and you can watch it at your leisure at any point. Again, Jake, thanks very much. Look forward to seeing you on Tuesday.
Thanks very much for having me, John. See you on Tuesday.
All right.